Yeah, you know, I don't mind being brain damaged. Being brain damaged is kind of cool. At least nobody asks me for advice. Nobody asks me to help them move. Nobody asks me to drive them to the airport. At least not more than once. Because handicaps in general make people uncomfortable. Brain damage handicaps especially make people uncomfortable. Sorry. If it'll make anybody feel better, go ahead and give me a few bucks. Differences are all around us. Everywhere we look are differences. People tend not to like other people who are different than themselves. And yet, what we know is that the more familiar we get with differences, the more comfortable we become with them. In other words, the more familiar you get with somebody who's different than you, the more comfortable you'll become with that person. One thing that I've noticed is that how comfortable we are with other people has a lot more to do with us than it does to do with them. First, I'll tell you about what happened to me. I'll be pretty brief with that because it's pretty basic. See, a motorcycle crash fractured my skull, bruised my brainstem, ruptured my spleen, and smashed my face. A whole team of doctors rebuilt me. Plastic surgeons screwed up. Yeah, I used to be gorgeous. In fact, I used to be a woman. The first time I tried to walk without a cane, I fell all the time. But see, one thing I noticed about falling is that if I kept my eyes on the mailbox on the corner, I could make it to the mailbox, usually. If I focused on that mailbox, that getting to that mailbox was my goal. I focused on it, I didn't hobble to it, but if I let myself get to be distracted by a kid on a skateboard or a cool car going by or some young mother chasing a bare-naked 6-year-old kid out the door with a belt, then I was going to fall. And that the same thing is true with people talking and being comfortable with people who have a disability. If you focus on the goal of being comfortable with that person who has a disability, chances are a lot better that you'll realize that goal. Don't worry about saying the wrong thing. They'll get over it. But they may not get over you ignoring them. Talking to somebody who has a disability and not mentioning it, you know what that's like? Okay, here's what it's like. Say you go over to somebody's house for dinner, and they have an elephant in the kitchen. But you don't want to mention it. You don't want to embarrass them. They know it's there. People who have a disability, they're not fragile. And a lot of times their lives are lonely. And you ignoring them because you're afraid they'll say the wrong thing, that contributes to the loneliness. Even the simplest things require all my attention, all my focus, all my energy. That's one reason people with disabilities may appear selfish. I mean, maybe they are selfish, a lot of people are, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're just focusing on doing what they gotta do. Maybe they're focusing on they need to get something done. People with brain damage can especially appear more selfish than they really are. Because brain damage kind of destroys your peripheral vision, your awareness of what's happening around you. And see, I tell you guys that so that if you know anybody who appears more concerned with themselves than they are with anybody else, don't jump to conclusions. Be kind enough to ask them if they're brain damaged. See, See, brain damage is like an iceberg. It's the unseen parts of the iceberg they sink ships. It's the unseen parts of brain damage that sinks relationships and a person's plans for a career and or a specific future. Do you have any icebergs in your life? For years, the resentment, self-pity, fear, bitter anger that I felt after my career sunk more relationships than I can even think about, than I can even remember. Negative emotions are a disability. 3 myths that affect how people think of people with disabilities. Myth number 1, people with disabilities are not as intelligent as people without disabilities. Myth number 2, people with disabilities aren't as capable as people without disabilities. Myth number 3, people with disabilities don't have dreams. My biggest dream, the dream I wanted most, was to drive again. Don't let yourself be put into a box by what other people expect or what other people think or what you think, your own fears. How you show a person with disabilities respect is totally different than how you show a regular person respect. For example, say I'm in a crosswalk. This is an actual event that happened. I'm in a crosswalk, hobbling along from one bus to the next bus to go to the therapy at Harborview Hospital. I was near the back of the pack. By the time the light changed, I hobbled up to the curb. The light had been green pretty long, so by the time I stepped out into the road, was a few feet from the curb, the light turned yellow, then red. And everybody else kind of scurried across the intersection, and they were all safe on the sidewalk. I'm there all by myself on the middle of the road. This businessman in a suit and tie, briefcase, walked back into the road, stood beside me, and walked slowly with me across the other side of the road. When we reached the sidewalk on the other side of the road, see ya, he was gone. That's how you show a person with disabilities respect. If you don't focus on the problem, but you focus on the person, focus on the goal, the mailbox, of being comfortable with them, you'll be comfortable with them.